Howdy, howdy, everyone. This is Christian Yetke here again with Traditional Masculinity and the Ways of the Bible, Not Man. I'm ready and excited to go over step 7 on today's journey. So come along with me and let's enjoy. So, my whole idea behind this one is behind delayed gratification. So you have to do the things that get you to where you want to be before you see the fruition. So delayed gratification, you got to put in the work and the time and the effort, and eventually the good things will come. And that sucks and it takes time, but delayed gratification is what I really want to be talking about today. So life can only be understood backwards, but it must be lived forwards. So this one was, really interesting thinking about it because we have to live our lives, straightforward and in general, where we have to take it one day at a time and we can't jump back and forth. There's no back to the future where we're jumping around seeing the past or the future. We have to be living it one day at a time. And then we have to actually understand it, and we can only do that after it's come about. So we understand when things happen, we can look back and understand, well, when I went through that experience, it taught me this lesson. Awesome. But whenever you're in the middle of that lesson, you're not going to see the lesson in the moment because it's going to be, one big challenge for you. So being willing to keep going through the battle, the storm, and facing it, dealing with it, and then eventually you will see and learn what it is that you need to learn in the past, or in the future you'll learn what that past thing you need to learn. For when all combine in every way to make everything easier and easier, there remains only one possible danger, namely that the easiness might become so great that it would be too great. Then only one want is left, though not yet a felt want, that people will want difficulty. So Kierkegaard here was talking about how when we make things so much easier on ourselves, whenever we make things, making things easier for yourself, it's great. You get more time, put in less work. But after, enough generations of doing that, we get to where we're at today's world that now people want nothing because they have to do nothing to obtain anything. They lose the value and the lessons that are learned in obtaining that thing. You don't get a healthy, fit body by wanting it. You have to have intense diet and exercise and be continuous with it for years. You have to delay the gratification of getting what you want today, and you have to wait tomorrow, next week, next month, next year to see any of those types of positive benefits afterwards. So that goes with anything in life. When we make anything too easy, we eventually have things that become so easy that we want the difficulty back. We want to have that ability to overcome those obstacles, and we want, because that's what gives us our sense of being an accomplishment, is that we know that we overcame it, we were able to obtain that thing. Is anyone among you suffering? Then he must pray. Is anyone cheerful? He is to sing praises. Because we're always going to suffer. We're always going to go through some type of battle and hardship, of course. And we're going to, and we should. Because through that suffering is where we find out who we are, and we find out our capabilities, and we find out, what makes us us. And we find out our strength through it. So yeah, if you're suffering, you're going to delay the gratification, right? You're not always going to be a cheerful person. But when you go through those hard times, it makes the good times, those cheerful times, those positive, happy times, so much better. But if you're always in a state of being happy, then it will eventually dwindle away, and you'll never enjoy it anymore because you're constantly in that state of cheer, happiness. That's why you need to go through those harder times to overcome it and then get to that good place. And he was saying to them all, if anyone wants to come after me, he must deny himself, take up his cross daily and follow me. For whoever wants to save his life will lose it. But whoever loses his life for my sake, this is the one who will save it. So we have to sacrifice that flesh. That is delaying gratification. It's nice to give into those fleshly things, but we have to deny that flesh. We have to sacrifice what it is that we want in that moment for what we want in the future, in the long run. And that takes time. So whenever that comes about, it's going to take that time. And those are the things you have to do But whenever things come around and you end up seeing the fruition of the goodness that you do, then then you got it, man, right? Like you get to that point of being able to see what it is you're able to suffer through. So yes, you have to deny yourself. You have to delay that gratification. You have to sacrifice your flesh for what the spirit wants and what the spirit needs. Really, it's what it needs. The flesh wants, but the spirit needs. For we know that our old self was crucified with him, so that the body ruled by sin might be done with, that we should no longer be slaves to sin. Again, he sacrificed himself. Christ, he went up on the cross. He went through that very, very intense, rigorous crucifixion process for us. And it was only through that process that we were able to be saved. And but he had to sacrifice his entire flesh. Like it says that it talks about how he was asking God to take the cup from him if it was possible. Like he didn't want to go through that torturous pain because he was still of flesh. He was still half flesh, and that flesh was like, I don't want to go through that. Like not even a little bit. No, but he needed to, and he had to, and he understood that he was told like, no, you're literally the only one that can do this. So if you don't do it, then the entire population of humanity as a whole is kind of screwed because he wouldn't, suffer a bit. And since he was able to take that burden on, now we all have a weight of our salvation. So you need to be sacrificing those things in your life that are not getting you closer to where you want to be in the long run. So this idea of I had of, the bigger the difference, the longer the time it takes to get there. Now, depending on whatever it is that you believe or want or are called for or are willing to go and chase. If you're just willing to live an average 9 to 5 day and do what everyone else does and live in the world, that's, it's okay. But if you actually believe and think that you have something more that you can do, that you're called towards, then it's going to take more time. Okay. Because patience is the companion of wisdom. So to take your time, right? To be patient. And it sucks. Believe me, I'm right now, even in this moment, still wanting so many things. And I'm turning and burning every day and every night, working towards getting towards this goal, that goal, like all these different things I'm working on. And I want it right now. And I'm doing the stuff right now. But I know I need to stay patient with it and be continuous in the process. But that still doesn't change the fact that I do want it right now. I am chasing these goals and I'm wanting it in the moment. So you're still going to want it. But when you accept that to do anything great, it's going to take time, then you got to accept that it's going to take that time. And you're going to have to embrace it. You're going to have to delay that gratification right now. Therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine and acts on them will be like a wise man who built his house on the rock. And the rain fell, and the floods came, and the winds blew and slammed against that house. And yet it did not fall, for it had been founded on the rock. And everyone who hears these words of mine and does not act on them will be like a foolish man who built his house on the sand. And the rain fell, and the floods came, and the winds blew and slammed against that house. And it fell, and it collapsed, and its collapse was great. So this is one of those very, very well-known analogies and verses that's used in the Bible here in Matthew. Whenever Jesus is comparing, when you hear something, what are you going to be doing with that information? So are you going to build your foundation? Is it going to be so solid as a rock that you're not just going to break it? If a storm comes, if waves come crashing against it, if it's a tornado and it blasts through there, like are those rocks going to get broken to pieces and thrown around, or are they going to be solid and sturdy? And that takes time, right? Anyone who's building a foundation for a house, it takes a long time, right? Or it takes an intense time to build a good foundation that you want to lay the concrete and put in the rebar, or if you are on the rock itself, it takes a long time to harden that rock, to make that concrete and get it to where it needs to be, so that no matter what happens to the house, the foundation is always going to be there. because you can have a big beautiful house that's on the sand, but as soon as one storm comes through and one little gust of wind, that whole house is going to go away. So it's going to be nice in the moment, but once that hard situation comes through, you're done and over with, because you didn't take your time, you weren't patient, you didn't delay the gratification that came with it. You just wanted it right now, and you used what you had in the moment, and you're like, all right, I'm just going to go about it this way. Versus if you build it on the rock, right? If you become so sturdy and so strong that your foundation is so intense and so strong that your big beautiful house will not get destroyed, and even if it does get any cracks or does completely go away, the foundation is still there. You still know where and how to build the next house. I'm a huge proponent for working for having fun. I'm very big on this, because I believe that when we need to work and then have fun, right? A man reaps what he sows in Galatians 6. I believe in taking the time to do what is needed, and then with whatever time is left over, then we can do what we want and enjoy ourselves. But the Bible is very, very specific and talks many, many times about people who are diligent, who are disciplined, who they have, if they have wisdom, they go about doing these things that need to be done first and foremost. And then then you get to go hang out. Then you get to be with your friends. Then you get to kick back and call it a day. But if you have a list of things that you need to do, you need to get them done. And guess what? You're delaying the gratification, because everyone wants to go and hang out. Everyone wants to go have fun. Everyone wants to go bowling with their buddies. They want to go, whatever, paintball, laser tagging, you know, anything that's going to be fun. It's all fun. It's going to be. It's supposed to be. But if you don't get the work done, then you didn't do anything for the fun. Work hard, play hard. That's how I view things. If you get the work done, then you can get to play. If you get a lot of hard work done, then you get to play really hard. The more work you do, the more play you can do. No citizen has a right to be an amateur in the matter of physical training. What a disgrace it is for a man to grow old without ever seeing the beauty and strength of which his body is capable. I love Socrates' thought here, because everyone is capable of so much, but it with that capability and potentiality of anything is going to come effort and sacrifice and delayed gratification and consistency and discipline. It's going to take all these attributes that you have to apply to reach that level of maturity, success, growth, any of it. And it's hard though. So when people aren't even willing to push their own physical body, which is their temple, then how are they going to be able to then they will not be pushing themselves in any other capacity. They won't dedicate themselves to work and making more money and doing good, or they won't dedicate themselves to that business that they are wanting to start. They're not going to dedicate themselves to their family, because they don't even care about themselves enough, so they're not going to care about others enough. So they're absolutely not going to be dedicated to working, reading the Bible or being diligent to God, because they don't care about themselves enough to put in that effort. So put in the work and then have fun. And that's the idea behind this. So again, I don't want to talk too many times about about women and what should be going on in it here, but very big proponent again of, if you want a family, then do the work it takes to obtain one. And today everyone's sitting around playing video games, eating crap food, and living on their phone and TVs. But if you actually want to have that family, then it's through years and years of hard work and dedication and working towards something bigger and better than yourself. A man who dares to waste 1 hour of time has not discovered the value of life. I thought that was a phenomenal quote by Charles Darwin when I came across it, because I have really accepted and meditated on that quote and that thought about, what am I doing with my life? Am I being intentional with my time? And because I'm very, very much aware, and I'm very much aware of the idea and the essence of time, and how short it is and how fleeting it is. So, and what I'm putting my time and energy into today, is that getting me to where I want to be, or at least to somewhere more than just living where I'm at and staying stagnant? Am I just getting by to get by just so I can, live paycheck to paycheck and live to just go hang out and do what everyone else is doing? Or is there something much more dedicated I can do with my time and somewhere else that I can be and grow towards and become something more and better than this, where I'm at here, me today? Nothing worth having comes without some kind of fight. And, that's everything in life, right? A family, you're going to be having a fight all the time in some way, right? If you want anything in life, you have to work for it. You have to fight to get it. You have to sacrifice what you want now for what you want later on. That's all the whole idea behind this delayed gratification. But if anyone does not provide for his own, and especially for those of his household, he has denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever. I heard this my entire life growing up. And my interpretation and understanding of it is that one, you don't know what you don't know. So if you don't know something, then you're just ignorant. We're all ignorant to something. Most of us, it's to most things. But whenever you hear something, whenever you learn it, you come across it, then you know it, or at least you can at least think on it and dive into it, whether it's a verse, a person, a thought, a feeling, a something. You spend the time to figure out what that thing is. If you refuse to, if you just say, oh, well, that's cool, but I don't care, I'm just going to go about my day, then you're stupid because you're intentionally ignoring something that could benefit you in the long run and in many areas of your life you could apply that thing to. So with my interpretation of that verse is that, guys who, they just have they just have bad households or parents or one parent or don't have any or any number of things. So you don't have an example. So you don't know what you're supposed to do. You can only do with what you see around you. Totally understandable. So if you know that you are meant, that there's something more than just, not going to grow up to have a kid, there's an actual relationship that needs to happen and form for a proper family to be. Because it's easy to just get married, or it's easy to just, sleep with someone, or easy to just have a kid. It's very easy to do any of that. In today's world, that happens every day and for very short periods of time. It'll last. That's because people aren't taking the time to build that foundation, even of a relationship. Now, do you even have yourself, and do you have a foundation of your own? The girl you're going towards, does she? And then can you build on that together? Right now, people are just building those relationships. Their foundation is on sand at best. Sometimes it feels like it's cardboard, but it just doesn't go anywhere. Because no one is taking that time, and that's something that takes months and years of doing with each thing. You can't have it all right now. That's why delayed gratification is what you need. Because when you have instant gratification, you end up like this guy here on the right. What is anything about that attractive? Do you think any woman is ever going to find any kind of appeal to that in the slightest? Fat, lazy, slump, eating crap, looks horrible, living in front of his computer. That's not attractive to any female, and no one's going to want that. You don't even feel proud or happy or confident in yourself whenever you're just sitting around slouching, fat, lazy, weak, doesn't know anything, can't produce anything, can't do anything for anyone. You can't do anything for yourself. You can't do anything for a family. So if you want a family, if you want a wife that's going to love you, if you want kids, if you actually want to do and be what that's meant to be, you have to be putting in that work now. You know, the Bible says, he who finds a wife finds a good thing. And if you're not a husband, then you ain't gonna get a wife. So if you want to do things in the proper way, then do it as such. You're gonna be stressed. Yeah, to have a relationship with a female, with having kids, that's gonna take everything from you of what you used to be and do. So all that freedom and joy of this singlehood, that's gonna go away, and you're gonna have a different type of joy and love and all the things that come with having a family. Two different ones, and they both have different types of stresses and problems and feelings and everything that goes with them. But if you can't even do the small stuff for yourself, then why in the world would God give you one of his daughters to do that to, right? You're meant to lead. Your literal job, one of the many ones, is to lead a household. So if you can't lead yourself, you ain't going to lead anyone else, and no one's going to want to follow you. But anyways, with that First Timothy, it's you don't know if you don't know what you don't know. So if you know it, you can apply it and build yourself up. So then you can build that household, and then you can be able to provide for that household. That doesn't just mean a roof and food. People say that, and it's very simple and basic. Anyone can do that. A homeless person can do that. But can you provide for them spiritually? Can you provide for them in the emotional way? Can you provide for them in all the other areas of life that it means to take care of someone? So that's my thought behind that. So I know how people like to talk about cheat codes. They like to talk about shortcuts. They like to talk about what's the easy way, the fast way. And here's the thing, it doesn't exist. All right. Anyone who tries to tries to cheat anything will not get there. You're not going to get there, and you're not going to learn the proper lessons that you're supposed to learn. You're not going to go through the specific training that takes time, right? We're talking about delayed gratification. You have to delay everything you could ever want, and it is everything you ever want. Sleep, food, family, you know, status, money, education, anything and everything that you want to grow into, it takes time. All right. Nothing is just handed to you at all ever. So there's no shortcuts and there's no cheat codes in life. None. Anyone who says that there are, well, you're not getting the full essence of what you're supposed to be learning. And you're probably not going to learn any lesson in general. The only thing you have is your blood, sweat, and tears. So are you willing to put in the years and years it takes to become fit? Right? It's going to take years. And those come with all those small choices. Are you willing to put in the time and effort to read the Bible and to talk with your God? Are you willing to, make those little monotonous decisions and go, I'm going to take the stairs or I'm going to take the elevator. I want to get in steps. Here's just one extra thing that I could do that could help my health and take the stairs. Whether you're on the first floor or the 10th floor, doesn't matter. It wasn't asked how many floors there were and how tired you'd be. It was, what are those small choices I can do to delay my gratification? What can I do to better help myself today in those areas that will get me to where I want to be tomorrow? Can you wake up at 4? Man, I love waking up at 4. I'm not doing that at the moment, but whenever I get on that schedule and I'm up at 4 in the morning, I get everything done before 95% of this world even wakes up. And it's awesome. I get to read, I get to pray, I get to go to the gym, I get to eat, I get to get all the things done that I need to before I go off into doing work and going to where I need to go and taking care of all the stuff that comes with the day. So I get to spend that time with me focusing on me and me spending that time with my God, my creator, and I get to get that done. But I get up at 4. But guess what? That means I'm in bed at 8 o'clock at night. So everyone who's up at till 10, 11, 12, 1, 2 in the morning, yeah, it's not going to get you really anywhere. But when you can get up and delay that gratification, when you can wake up early and sacrifice that flesh, and be like, I would love to stay in bed. Look, it's dark out. Man, everyone else is asleep. That's when you get your work done. So it's sacrificing what you want now for what you want later. If you want it now and that's all you care about, okay, don't be upset and don't ask why you don't get anywhere in life, because you go for everything right now. Wait for tomorrow. Now, I know this is all great information and it sounds very intense because the way you go about it, it absolutely can be. So I'm aware that not everyone, that very few, actually, very, very few people are even capable of the concept of just being able to do things cold turkey, right? Just cut off the bad and add in the good and just go to it from there. Some can, but not everyone's going to be able to. And even if you do things cold turkey and you cut out all the evil and bad and you add in all the good and do everything right, you're still going to have a transition period over weeks and months and years, and everything's going to grow into each other. I have the exact same situation. So whenever you have those problems, right, I'm big on using like substitutes. Build that transition, work on your journey of changing, all the bad you're doing and all the good you're doing, and start to make that transition that you cut out more of the bad and you add more of the good and go through that process. And that takes months and years even. And at every step and at every day, you're going to learn something new. You're going to make another mistake or the past mistake, and then learn that, oh man, I gave into that so easy. I didn't even notice that I was doing it. And it's just going to be a continuous learning lesson. And that's going to be your entire life in general. But you can get rid of a lot of the same basic dumb decisions that you're making right now. So instead of just sitting there binge watching TV because you don't know what to do, or you just are just mentally too exhausted, don't want to do anything, whether you have that alcohol or drugs or sex or porn or any other type of addiction or problem, substitute it. Start adding in the more good stuff. And as you add in more of that good stuff, the bad stuff is going to go down. How long, to what degree, that's up to you. That's however your journey is going to be with God. But I promise you it will. And that's just cutting out those things one at a time. You start going to the gym, you'd still be doing all the bad stuff you're doing because you're just so weak and that's where you're at. You start adding in these good things gradually, incrementally, it's going to happen and you'll start adding in some good stuff. You start reading every day. You're going to start, okay, now you keep reading, you keep reading. Okay, now you started going to the gym. Now you're going to the gym. Okay, now you're also eating healthier. Now you're feeling better. Now you're sleeping. Now you're doing better at work. And then, now that you're sleeping and doing better at work because you're waking up on time and more mentally and cognitively conscious and aware when you're at work. Well, guess what? That's because now you stop going out to the gym or going out to the bar and drinking and wasting your time and chasing girls and watching 10 movies a week, just wasting your time. Now you're doing more good and you're getting rid of the bad. And that's the progression of that's the progression of life and how you're going to go about every day for the rest of your life. It's just going to be a new, different type of challenge and change as you go. So whenever you are wanting those addiction like things, whenever you're falling into that type of, that lustful problem, that addiction based problem, then start to substitute it. Bring in the prayer, go to the gym, go for a run, pray away in Jesus' name, blank, whatever it is, leave. It does work, by the way. It really does. And just take that progression, right? And it's going to be much easier whenever you have a group of people that you're doing that with. So proper preparation prevents poor performance. So when you prepare for stuff, when you get ready for things and you're super ready, you've already been doing all the work, the research, everything that you need to do in advance. Then when you get to the situation, when things come at you, especially the problems that are going to happen, you've already prepared for it. So now they don't really get to you. Now you're just like, oh, we have already planned for that. We'll get, it doesn't affect you. You can just slide right past it. Abraham Lincoln's got this saying of, give me 6 hours to chop down a tree and I'll spend the first 4 sharpening an axe or the axe. And that's, he's spending the first 2/3 of, he's spending the good 2/3, the first majority of his time, he's spending sharpening, as in he's preparing, getting ready for the tree. It's not cut, sharpen, cut, sharpen. It's, I'm going to make sure my blade is so sharp that all I have to do is just keep hitting and it's not going to get dull. So it's constantly being able to build and work on yourself and getting ready in advance. Suffer hardship with me as a good soldier of Christ Jesus. Again, we were told very explicitly in the beginning, we're told that, hey, you're going to suffer, like you're going to go through some type of pain in life. It's going to suck. You're going to suffer in some way. What type you want to choose is up to you. But the kind that, that God offers, that Christ's salvation gives, that's the kind that's going to actually make you feel anything, right? The world's not going to have you feel anything in what you're doing. You're just going to live mindlessly like a zombie. And you know it because you've probably been doing it. Actually, I already know you've been doing it because everyone's going to have that type of phase, especially when they're younger, because they don't have that guidance or they're just youthful ignorance. That's kind of what it comes to. But we're told we're going to suffer and we're going to go through hard times. And that's completely okay because when you go through those hard times and you do this and you live in the suffering and then you overcome it, then you build that confidence and competency of yours, knowing that, like, hey, I went through X thing. I went through it. I overcame it. I can do it. Obviously God on my side, he allowed it, but I was able to do that. Like, it sucked. Like, I had to suffer a lot, but I was able to overcome it. So, okay, what else could I do? Because if you don't prepare, if you don't build yourself up, if you don't work to getting somewhere, then you become like one of these two weak guys. One is so weak that he can't even defend himself because he's weak. He's scared. doesn't know how to do anything that means to be a man of protecting and defending, not even himself. Or it's the other weak man who is so weak that he beats up on the weak, on the fragile, on those that are, so sensitive, that are so capable of being, bullied and thrown around because they themselves are weak. So it's two different types of weak, but they are both nonetheless weak. And, food for thought, if you want to be weak, you're going to end up being like one of those types of weaks, or you can end up being strong, because to be strong, you can counter that type of weakness. And that's what we need in this world. Is we need more men who are actually competent, capable, and confident in themselves, so that they can stand up against the evil in the world. Because when you are capable of great violence, then you can stand against it. And that takes, guess what? Preparation. So you have to prepare yourself for years to learn how to do things before you can actually go and apply it properly. You don't just go to one class or watch one Jet Li movie, or, you know, or go to one or two things and think, oh wow, look at that, I can throw a punch, or I think I can even, or I can do this one little thing. That means I know how to fight. You don't. You spend years crafting that type of capability and building that confidence and building that competency in that aspect. Because then you get to face against someone who doesn't know how to fight, and they are scared and weak. And then you know that you can take care of yourself. Because there are men who are so weak that they not only just beat up on other guys, because normally they don't, unless they are so weak that they're able to, but they will beat up on the elderly, the women, and children, and do many great, horrible acts of violence in this world. And it's because we don't have enough who are willing to be strong and stop them and fight against them. Hence why we are here. Trial and error. Life is all about trial and error. Those who can make you believe absurdities can make you commit atrocities. So if you can be fooled into, believing in a little of something, then you can be fooled in believing a lot of something. And and like anything else, it's a gradual, continuous progress. So if you're willing to fall for what someone says and such a small, minor thing because you don't know, great. Normally you're not going to know everything. So when you come across something and it's new, don't just take someone's word on it. Go learn and understand it for yourself, whatever that is, and then you can overcome it, and you can, go against that. But if you just take someone's word on it, then you can be led astray, and it's very easy to, because that is exactly what Satan did to Jesus here in the wilderness. Jesus was was out in the desert. He was fasting for over a month. He he was thirsty, he was hungry, he was tired, he was by himself. And that is when the enemy came at him, not whenever he was with his buddies, not whenever he was just eaten, not whenever he, was asleep and fully rested. He came at him whenever he was completely, everything was just out, right? Just everything was taken. And he had none of that, physical fulfillment and nourishment or any of the stuff. So he's hungry and he's tired. That is when Satan came after him and tried to trick him. He tried to trick him with the truth, though. So whenever he's saying, hey, you're hungry, you can make those stones loaves of bread, eat. Here's what the Bible says. Hey, you know what? Hey, here's all this great. And he's like, I know you're super tired because you're doing stuff, but I can give you those great big, all that power over there. I can give you the kings, the kingdoms, all the everything. It's like, I can give you everything in this world. And he's like, hey, Bible scriptures, I can say this, I can do that, I can blah, blah, blah. And even though some of what he said was true, it was done with, evil intentions and evilness behind it. And that's how that's how he was going about things. So and Jesus, because he's perfect, he didn't fall for any of it, because he knew that, because he spent his whole life, his 30 years, in the timing, he spent 30 years, researching and learning and understanding the Torah. So he knew every word. So whenever, the enemy came at him with a lying, or using true scripture, and was saying, hey, here's what the verse says, here's what the truth is. And it's like, yeah, but here's the actual answer to that. So he was prepared. He knew how to fight against the enemy. And again, we're going to go through trial and error, though. Because we are fleshly and sinful, we are going to try, we're going to fail, we're going to screw up, but then we learn from that lesson and we keep going. And guess what? Then you're going to eventually fail in something again, but then you're going to learn from it. And that's the continuous progression of life, is that you do something, you work towards it until you fail, and then you learn a lesson, and then you try again. You never stop. Go out, look at any millionaire or billionaire who built a business, started a business, something, and how they got there. And it's not because it's not because they took it, because they had it easy, or because they took safe bets. They took many very risky bets in life, or on people, or on the business thing that they're working on. And sometimes it worked and sometimes it didn't. But they're at their place now because more things worked than they didn't, because they tried more. So trial and error, that's your entire life. Go at it, keep going at it. No one can serve two masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or he will be devoted to one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and wealth. You can say wealth, you can say lust, you can say drink, or alcohol, gluttony, money, status, power. You can fill in wealth with whatever you want. It is, it's either God is your identity, and that's what you're going to be looking at, and that's what you're going to have guiding your life, as we've been talking about, or you're going to have something else that's your God. And I was very confused by this for the longest time, until one day I went over to my young adults leaders, and I was just like super lost, and I just been meditating and praying on this thing, and I was like, I don't get it, I don't understand. So I went over to their place crying, you know crying up a storm, and just like, I don't get it. I'm here, like, I don't understand what this means. How am I serving two masters? Like, I know this is true, but I give into it so easily, and giving into the flesh. The spirit has been there. It tells me, it tells you, it's saying this is wrong, this is right. But our flesh says, hey, even though this is wrong, it's fun. We like it. It's good. Let's do it. So eventually, God had opened up my eyes and showed me what Matthew 6:24 was, and what it meant. And he was finally able to reveal that to me on, you know, on the on the idea of where I was at, and the two masters I was serving. And I still didn't have God as first. I still didn't do and understand enough certain things. But again, he showed me where my faultings were, and over a progression of time, I was able to apply it and work towards giving more into the spirit, and taking and denying more of the flesh. And it was, again, it was a thing. So I had to, it took time, right? I had to start delayed gratification. So at the time, I was going out to the bar, and I'd go dancing and drinking, and taking girls home. And that was the life I lived, because that's what everyone else lived, and that's what I knew, and that's what I was around. And eventually, like, I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, so what do I need to do? Well, if I'm trying to do more good, but I'm doing so much bad. So then what I started to do for me was I stopped going to the bar. I stopped going out and drinking and dancing and chasing girls. So I was like, all right, well, I stopped going to the environment with all the other people that are doing the exact same thing. Well, then, there goes all that. I don't have to deal with a lot of those problems now. So now I let out, or I give up a lot of fleshly things. Now that because I was spending 4 to 12 hours a week at the bar, hanging out, doing all bad stuff for bad reasons. And so now that I had those 4 to 12 hours a week, now I had more time to go to the gym. Now I was, waking up, I able to wake up because I wasn't hungover. Now I was healthier because I wasn't drinking all that alcohol. Now I felt better because I wasn't always chasing girls, and I had more time with not doing any of that bad stuff. So now I was able to go to the gym now, at least longer. I was able to spend more time with God. I was able to meditate more. I was able to spend more time relaxing, or doing something that I needed to do. Trial and error. If you think the cost of winning is too high, wait until you get the bill from regret. I love that quote, because that one was really interesting. Because people are going to have regrets, or they're going to learn lessons, and that's up to you. Like, people are going to regret certain things for sure, and other people are just like, that was a hard lesson to learn. But I really like that one. So like I've mentioned before, you need to have a group. You need to have that tribe, that community, that brotherhood. Every guy is searching for that. Every guy wants that. Now, whether you go into it in a good way and you get one of these things, like you find that brotherhood, you find a good community of guys, even if it's just one, at least one is great. But then much less if you find a group and you're all doing it together, it's only X time, many times, better than that. Or when it happens in a negative way, because we're looking for these groups, then that's what happens whenever we have gangs, right? That's whenever we have these negative groups, because every guy is wanting that. They're wanting that sense of being. They're wanting to know that they're here for a reason and there's something more than just them living in their misery. And they will find that in negative places. Then that's whenever we have gangs and people who are like, yeah, come on in, we'll take you in. We will give you that brotherhood, we'll give you that community that you're looking for. But of course, that's all they know. So it's the negative, bad version of it. So it's finding that positive version. It's going to that gym and you're finding someone. So if you want to become something, then go be around other people that are like it. I love Cody Sanchez's quote of get in rooms where your dreams are others' realities. So if you want to be better, you're like, I know there's something more than this. I want to go, like, I want to have that, I want to be like The Rock, or I want to be like, whatever big, jacked, ripped kind of person. You're like, I want to look like that. I want to get to that point. How your body looks is the only thing that you have to do physically and mentally. You have to put in that work to prove that you got there, and you got there through pain and heartache and consistency and delayed gratification. To have a great body, to be big, to be strong means complete dedication and delayed gratification and consistency of focusing on this goal and ideally being in around a group that are able to help build you there. You can come across, you could win the lottery, you could get, family could already be rich, so you don't make money that way, so you don't get anything from it. But whenever you put in that work for your body, that is what you can be like, I'm here, I look like this, I did the work, I went through the blood, sweat, and tears, I suffered to get here. So get around people that are doing that live like that. You want to get big and strong, go to the gym. The Iron Church is one of the greatest places and has some of the most real people that you will ever come across, because everyone that's going to a gym has this goal of wanting to be better than they were yesterday. They are wanting to overcome something that they were trying to fight against. They are going there to better themselves. They are going there to do more good things, get fit, stay healthy, lose weight, whatever the case is. So go around and be around those people. Same thing there at the Iron Church that they're going to be doing of working on their bodies and minds. Same thing you do at a regular church. You're going to go and find those people that are actually cultivating that relationship with God on a daily basis, and they're constantly trying to get closer to Him. They're constantly praying and reading their Bible. They do it every single day, and they are very devoted to that. They're very disciplined, and they're still willing to pray for a day, a week, a month, a year, a decade to find out and keep praying for the same thing, just to know that it doesn't get answered till years and years, decades away down the road. But they keep praying for it because they have that delayed gratification. They know it's going to be there. Because when you have when you can get in a group in a room with a group of guys that are on the same path as you, whether that's in the gym, whether that's, in the Bible, whether that's in business, whether that's just in self-development, whether that's in education or anything. It says in Proverbs 27, as iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another. You are there to be working on each other. You're there to grind. You're grinding, like iron, metal. You're taking one piece of metal and it sharpens another piece. That's what you guys are doing. You are sharpening each other. You're building each other. You're challenging each other. And not only just that, but but a part of that is this very specific word called accountability. You're keeping each other accountable so that whenever you are still on your journey, your path, and you give in, you're like, oh, and you're still drinking. So you're like, oh yeah, I slept in. I didn't go. It's like, where did you go? I went to the gym this morning. We're going to be up. It's like, yeah, sorry, I was hungover. Yeah, no, I stayed up late. Yeah, no, I did something that's an absolute BS excuse. Well, it's like then that buddy, his job there as your friend, as helping you, as just being there in general and seeing it, just in seeing it. He's there to call you out and say, he's like, I thought you didn't want to be like your dad, who's an alcoholic. I thought you didn't want to be like your mom who like never got out of bed because she was too lazy and that's why you never got to spend time with her. I thought you wanted to be better than, what your entire family does and they're just a bunch of of junkies. I thought you wanted more for yourself. I thought you actually wanted to dedicate yourself. Why are you not trying to push yourself? Why are you giving in? You're going to have someone that's going to be accountable and not only that, but they are not going to sugarcoat it. They're going to be so kind to you, not nice. We talked about before, not nice, but being kind. So he's going to be there and he's going to call you on your shit every single time. And that is what you need. And I love it and I can talk about it explicitly because I do that so much these days that I have friends who call me up and like, "Hey, can you keep me accountable for eating this, for not eating that, for reading, for not being on my phone, for reading, for something?" And I'm like, "Sure, I absolutely." I'll hit them up and then sometime they'll be like, "Oh yeah, I didn't do that thing." And I'm like, "Okay, why? I thought you wanted to be better. You made this promise to yourself. And I will go and I'm straightforward about it. And with each person, I know how to change it with each, but I'm very straightforward and honest and, in all honesty, a dickhead about it because that's what you need. I'm not here to sugarcoat anything and say, oh, it's okay, try better next time. I'm there to say, no, you said you wanted more from yourself. You expected better from yourself. I expect more from you. Why aren't you showing it? And I'm there to hold them and keep them accountable. And that's pretty much normally appreciated. Granted, it's not nice and people don't normally like it because no one likes to be called out on their crap. But the amount of times that people have said thank you for doing that and calling me on my crap, thank you for pushing me, thank you for challenging me. I've gotten that more times than someone said, man, you're really mean. And I'm like, I know I am. I don't care though. Granted, that's a me thing, and I'm very intense about how I go about things. But overall, find a group, get a group. Maybe you have some friends that are and you're all that fat, lazy, slum piece of crap that's just playing video games, watching porn with your phone in one hand and your dick in the other. Maybe you're just that pathetic. I mean, I know I've been there. So maybe you're there. Maybe you need to get all your buddies and say, hey, let's actually do something. Let's actually start to work on ourselves. Let's apply one thing, just one thing, whether that's wake up, whether that's make your bed, whether that's start eating this thing, whether that's cut out this thing, whether that's read the book, whether that's praying. You can do something. Find other guys, and it helps much more. It helps so much when you have more guys around you who are doing it because then you guys hold each other accountable. So, like I was just leaving off with the fact that sometimes you're just in that complete lowest low slum or that slump of you're like I feel like there's something going on. Like I feel like I could be doing more. I'm told that I'm good and I'm told that I'm loved and I'm told that I'm perfect the way I am. But what does that really mean? I feel like I could be doing more. But I'm told I'm good where I'm at, so I'm so confused. And here's the answer to it. No, you're not okay the way you are because you're capable of so much. You have so much capability and potential that's in front of you. It doesn't matter how old you are. You could be 80 years old and just getting this thought across your head. You can spend whatever's left of your life doing and being good and being better. So there's so much more that you're able to do. But here's the thing, the world's not there and it doesn't tell people push, work, grind, go suffer, go endure a hardship and grow physically, mentally, and spiritually. We're not being told to do that anymore. And there's no way in hell you're going to do that on a spiritual level, fighting the flesh, if you can't physically just fight your own basic flesh and wake up early. It all comes back of the idea of taking up your cross, of sacrificing your flesh, of fighting against the enemy, of overcoming all that stuff. You're not going to be able to do that on the spiritual level because again, Satan only attacks the flesh. When you give into the flesh, that keeps you stationary where you're at. When you're physically stationary, then you're mentally just like, okay, well, we'll just be here. And then spiritually, you're going to be dwindling. So Alexander the Great has this great saying of, there is nothing impossible to him who will try. So when you don't feel like something's right, when you feel like there's something else more and bigger out there than what you know where you're at, there is. And you have to go and find that, because there's so many things in the world and we think they're impossible, but guess what? Someone has conquered and done those things. Many people have climbed Mount Everest. Not that many, but enough have that to show that it's possible. But of course, they go through a lot of training. So leading off on that, people who say it cannot be done should not interrupt those who are doing it. So when something's impossible and you're trying to do it, and someone is coming about in your life and they're saying that it can't be done, they're projecting their own thoughts on themselves, not on you, because no one knows your capabilities. You don't even know your own capabilities. Only God knows what you're capable of, which is anything that you put your mind to. But just because you're capable of reaching something doesn't mean it's going to be easy. In fact, it means the opposite. It means it's going to be hard. The more you accomplish and the more you want, the harder it's going to be. So in those people, maybe you come from that family, maybe everyone's a drunk, maybe everyone's an alcoholic, maybe everyone's, you know, poor, living on the street, and you're like, I'm going to be a millionaire, and everyone's talking down on you. Well, remember what Bernard Shaw said. People are projecting their own insecurities on you. So don't listen to other people that are going to interrupt and get in the way of what you are trying to do. You accept and believe that there's something more. That is a very good first thought. Dive into it, meditate on it, pray on it, search out what more that thought means, because there's enough people that are talking about what you're capable of doing. So you're not happy where you're at because you know subconsciously in your soul, you know that you're capable of so much more. And there's so much more out there than just porn, TV, fast food, and hating yourself. There's the opposite of all that. There's something really great out there. And that comes through a lot of trial and error and a lot of delayed gratification. But you got to find out what that is. So no, you're not okay the way you are. You're not even close, because perfect doesn't exist. Only Christ is perfect. And none of us amount to anything close to him. So you're not perfect. You're probably not even good. I doubt you're even okay. But you can absolutely be more okay than where you're at right now. You can get more okay, and then you can be much more good, and you can keep progressing. But it's going to take time, and it's going to take a lot of suffering. Again, you got to pick whatever suffering you want. So, like I mentioned before, you don't know what you don't know. You don't know something, it's ignorance. We're all ignorant to something. I'm ignorant to many things. I don't know it yet. But when I know something and I can understand and I can see that there's something to it, then I go in on that thought, that idea, that study, that whatever it is. I'm going to diligently go in and learn what that thought is, whatever that thing is. And then if I intentionally ignore it, deny it, don't care for it, say, oh, well, that's hard, I'm not going to go about it. Well, then now I'm stupid, because I'm knowing something, but now I'm actively, intentionally, consciously choosing to go away from it. Because we don't know. We don't know what's going to happen. For my thoughts are not your thoughts, nor are your ways my ways, declares the Lord. We don't know what he's got going on. We don't know what his plan is. We don't know any of it. And it really sucks. He might be generous enough that maybe sometime down the road, he'll let you look in the rearview mirror and you can see, why you had to go down that path and why you had to, go through that battle. Because if you didn't go through that, you couldn't go on this following road, and you couldn't grow because you had to learn a lesson in that battle. You had to overcome something in that type of challenge so that you could learn how to apply that to the next thing, right? You can't beat a level 100 boss if you can't beat a level 1 boss. Because Socrates says in this main thing, this amazing quote that I love and live by, all I know is that I know nothing. The more I research, the more I learn, the more I press into God, the more I read the Bible, the more I, listen to podcasts, the more history I read, the more I live and acquire information and knowledge, the more I realize, oh my God, there's so much that I just don't know. There's so much of a world, and there's so much information that doesn't even exist. And all the information that's out there, we'll never be able to know it all, but we can know a lot more than we know now. So you don't know what you don't know. So find out what you don't know and learn about it. And then now you know that thing. So I know the world, the Satan has done a very good job at teaching us and making us think and believe in what we see and hear. Right now, what is so prevalent is TV, it is music, it's social media, it's all these different types of influences and influencers that we listen to and believe because it's online, because someone said it, because there's a movie on it, because that's what all we fill ourselves with is that music, that movie series or TV series and whatever it is, and we believe it to be real. That's why I do one of the things I do like to say is to stop listening to music, stop watching TV, cut it out, go if you can go cold turkey, if you can just cut out these bad things in life to stop filling yourself with all the bad stuff and allow yourself to just think and to learn and to see what's good in the world. Because music, the TVs, reality TV, which none of it's actually real. It's all staged. It's all making you think that just because that's happening, that that's the absolute, truth overall. Like nothing else exists and matters but this truth. But that truth is actually a lie. But life is not, it's not a country song. It's not a Hollywood movie. The enemy has done a very, very good job that's led us to believe in all this crap that it's real and that's what matters, right? But that's not how it works. And when we believe that this music and TV that we so much indulge ourselves in on a daily basis, much less throughout the entire day, we're constantly absorbing all this stuff. And then we think that, well, since we don't meet that standard, then we're less deserving of love, that we're just worthless and pathetic and we're all these crappy things. Even though God is love, so he's the one who dictates that. And he talks about what is real. He is the only thing that is real. So stop following the sheep. Stop following everything and everyone that's right in front of you. Cut out the noise. Turn off the music. Turn off the TV. Put your phone away. Go read the Bible. Go to the gym. Go for that walk out in the sun and in the fresh air and just get away from all the crap and all the noise. Because in Romans 7, it says, I do not understand what I do. For what I want to do, I do not do, but what I hate to do. Because because again, we talk about ourselves as one. We're still two parts because we are half human and half spirit, right? Or we are a spirit with a physical body on the outside. The physical body, the flesh, the only thing that Satan can actually come after, he comes after it with all these sugar-coated pleasures. It's a lie full of sugar and it tastes great going down, but eventually it's going to kill you slowly. And you constantly do that. So if you're constantly doing that, then that is how you do what you don't want to do. Because we know inherently, in some way, to some degree, you've at some point said, this feels wrong. I don't like doing this. This. I feel like crap. I drink. I get blacked out drunk every night, and I don't remember what I did, or who I was with, or oh man, I knocked up that girl, or some kind of something. And that's the flesh living for it. And we say it's like I'm doing things that I don't want to do, but I do it anyways. That is you saying, that's your spirit saying, I am partaking in this physical act, but I don't want to. Like the spirit is saying no, the flesh is saying yes. And that is why it is a daily battle, a struggle. It is sacrificing your physical flesh because your spirit is telling you what is right and what is real and what you should be doing. And it's able to tell you, don't do this or do this. And the flesh is just like, yep, let's do whatever's fun. So that's why it is a constant battle every day. No man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity, for he is not permitted to prove himself. Seneca, phenomenal here. If you don't challenge yourself, and this is all so many studies on this. Oh God, all types of literature, all types of psychological studies, all types of information and science behind this that show that when we do not physically and mentally push ourselves to become better, it doesn't matter what it is. I don't care if that's learning an instrument. I don't care if that's just dedicating yourself to build a tree house as a kid, if that's being able to teach your dog how to sit on command. If you do not challenge yourself to overcome something or to accomplish something that has some degree of difficulty to it, then yeah, you you feel worthless. You feel like you haven't done anything and you can't do anything because you haven't done anything. So to feel like you can accomplish things and you're confident because you're like, I've overcome, I've actually done something that I can have the confidence to say that I've done it. To be able to do that means you have to actually put in that time and effort and struggle to do it. That's why if you walk around because you have an amazing body, because you've put years of dedication and discipline and delayed gratification and consistency of eating a healthy diet, of going to the gym regularly, of getting proper sleep, drinking enough water, having a good life routine and not partaking in poisonous crap and not drinking. Now you're just taking care of your body. Well, then you can walk around and be like, yeah, I've done it, right? I put in the work. So if you don't overcome things, then yeah, you're not going to feel like you've done anything because you haven't done anything. You don't feel like it because you haven't. It's as simple as that. So if you want to feel like you've done something, then you need to start doing it. And you're going to fail. You're going to mess up. Maybe for a while, you're going to do nothing but mess up. But eventually, you're going to learn and figure it out and you will overcome. I love the saying when I heard it: pray like it's up to God and work like it's up to you. We need to pray for things, and God's going to allow what He has happen 100%, absolutely. But if you pray for something and don't do any kind of work to to prove that, to actually show that you're trying to do something in it with it, well then like who's gonna help you? Who's gonna do anything that's gonna benefit you, or it's gonna be able to help you on your journey, or it's gonna do answer that, or why would God answer that prayer if you aren't willing to do any work? If you just sit there and go, hey God, can you give me $1 million? Okay, thanks. But if you aren't willing to go study, you aren't willing to go learn about business, if you aren't willing to go dedicate yourself to becoming that millionaire, of learning how to work with finances and all the stuff that comes with it, you're not going to get it, right? You have to be putting in the work, because progress is not achieved by luck or accident, but by working on yourself daily. You have to keep working on yourself. If you want anything, you will get it 100%. No matter what it is, you want it, you'll get it, right? It says knocking, he'll answer. The door will be opened up for you. If you knock, he'll open the door, he'll answer you, he'll help you, he'll answer that prayer. Now, it's not how we think. I don't think it's ever happened the way I've ever thought or anticipated the way it would happen, or to the degree, or much less the timing on it. Never. But still, what I asked for came through, and has always come through 10, 10 times, 100 times, even more than what I even thought or asked for. For everyone who has been given much, much will be demanded. And from the one who has been entrusted with much, much more will be asked. So if you ask for anything in this life, it's something's always going to be required of you. You're existing, you're here, you're alive. Something is required of you to contribute to society, into this life, whatever form that looks like, to whatever degree that looks like. So if you ask, but if you're actually specifically asking for a lot, whatever that is, then more is going to be required of you. If you're like, I really want to get that management job. I want the pay increase. I want the more responsibility. I want that position, that title, that whatever it is. Well, whenever that time comes, and if you actually do get to be in that management position, now you have, since you do get paid more, now you do have more responsibilities, more is required of you. So now you're not just working to take care of yourself. Now you have a bunch of other people you have to take care of, and you have to make sure they're doing their job. And when they're not, you have to help them and work with them with where they're at. So a lot more is asked of you. A lot more is going to be required of you. All right. So I love this one, going over the greats were not always great. All right. No one in the Bible, no one from Adam. The only one is obviously Jesus, but no one else in the Bible anywhere is perfect. So many people, men and women, were called to great things and did great things, and we know and revere them very much. But here's the thing: every single one of them absolutely messed up. They did a lot of bad. They were all types of things. Jacob, he cheated, right? We're told not to. It's one of the 10 commandments in itself. To not cheat on your wife, to not do that kind of stuff. And he did. Doesn't mean that just because you do a sin, or even if you're in a high position of power or authority or benevolence from God, that even not if, but whenever you screw up and you make a bad choice and you go against God in whatever way it is, that it doesn't mean that now you're cast out, because God still is with us where we're at, because he knows that we're going to fail and mess up. And sometimes that just happens. We give into that. We fall into that flesh. We whatever it is. So that happens. So Jacob did a lot of great things. He's very well known, and we take a lot of great things from him. But he cheated, so he messed up. So we know to not do what he did, but we know all the other things that he did do. Learn from him. Peter, Jesus said, like, I'm building my rock, my church here with you on this place. It's by you. But guess what? Peter was very angry a lot. He had a big temper. He denied Christ whenever Christ was taken for uh, whenever he was taken for crucifixion, or to be crucified. He was told that he'd deny him 3 times, and Peter denied by 3 different people 3 different times. He's like, no, I don't know the guy. No, I'm not his disciple. No, I'm not, blah, blah. So he's still even there with Christ one-on-one, and he was called to be the rock, you know, there for their community, for their group, for what they'd be doing. He still gave in, and he gave into that fear and of being killed, of being, called out, of dying. And because again, we're still fleshly, we're still human, but that still happened. He still, we talked before about how he looked at Jesus on the water, and he still didn't, and he believed for a moment, but then he stopped, but then he saw the pain and the crashing waves, the wind, the storm around him, and then he lost faith. And then he fell in, and Jesus still went in and pulled him back out. He's like, man, I'm still here, man. You have little faith. Like, I'm here. Why did you doubt? So David, the man after God's own heart, he's known as that in the Bible. The only man who's known after God's own heart. He was amazing. He was top tier king, and he did many amazing things. And guess what? He was still an adulterer and a murderer. He still did bad things, even though he is one of the most revered in the Bible. Not only him, but his son Solomon. Also, as the Bible says, he was the wisest that ever has and ever will exist. Side note on that, Solomon, he didn't just ask for wisdom and God gave it to him. He asked for wisdom, and he was very dedicated to study. So he spent much, much, much of his time, a whole lot of his time, researching and learning and studying what was going on, people, cultures, whatever information they had at the time, he researched and learned it. And so that's just a side note. So Solomon, phenomenal, the wisest ever. He still had a problem, right? Just like his dad, who was an adulterer, because he saw a pretty girl and he's like, oh man, she's nice. I want her. Oh, she's already married. All right, well, kill him, and I'm going to take her. So Solomon, he had his problem with women. He had, I think it was over 1,000 wives and concubines in total. He had over 1,000, and he gave into all that flesh. And eventually, one of them pulled him aside and had him go from worshiping God and worshiping her idols, the fake, false ones. And then guess what? He suffered. He suffered dearly for falling into that flesh. But it doesn't mean God said, all right, well, you screwed up. I got you into a good place. You screwed up. Now I'm sending you down to hell. You're going to burn forever. Bad person. No, he suffered a consequence. He paid dearly for it, and he learned a very valuable lesson, because we're all sinners. We're all sinners. We're all sinful. We're all going to learn. Noah, he spent over 100 years building the ark while everyone was calling him and telling him that he was, that he was stupid, that his God was fake and all this stuff. Where's your rain? Blah, 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 blah. And, after he spent over a century dealing with that kind of stuff, and everyone, not liking him and teasing him and calling them names and whatnot, his family's the only one that survived. And then afterwards, a lot happened, and he ended up, they call him a drunk because he just like kind of drank after that, or at least that one situation. But he gave into whatever type of fleshly situational thing at that moment. He was told not to, but he did. Jonah, He literally ran from God. God's like, hey, I need you to go here. He's like, nope, I'm getting on a boat and I'm going here, like opposite direction entirely. And God still got his way. He's like, nope, all right, go sit in the belly's whale, a whale's belly, or kraken or whatever it was really. And he went and sat in a nice stinky fish for a couple of days and had to learn the lesson. So he literally ran against or ran away from God and what he said. Paul, he's written the majority of the New Testament himself, and he was a mass murderer of God's people. He was doing that because at that time where he was who he just killed people. He just mass murdered everyone because they didn't agree and believe in the way he did, because he believed in wrong. But even a mass murderer, a genocidal man, was called to do great things, and he wrote the majority of the New Testament. Gideon, and all of his amazement, all the great things he did, he was still insecure. Miriam, women are specifically told not to gossip in the Bible. Miriam was a gossiper. She still did that at times. And, I know it doesn't sound like maybe as much as being a mass murderer, but it's still a specific commandment that we're told not to do. Anyone, but directly applied to women, because that's more of what they do at times. And she did. But guess what? She was still, still called by Jesus to do great things. And she did. Martha, she worried. She was just like many others who just constantly worried, didn't have that faith all the time. Was still giving into that flesh. Thomas, known as Doubting Thomas, he kept constantly doubting Christ and what was going on. Sarah, she was impatient. She's like, I want a kid now. She's like, I'm old. I'm like, I can't have a kid anymore. Like, I'm like really, really past that age. And so she was impatient, but God was able to use that impatience and prove a lesson for her, for us, that no matter how long we think, is a good or right time, he will allow what he wants to have happen when he wants to happen. Elijah, he he got moody. He got in his own feels and his own emotions at times, but he was used for many great things. He did a lot of great things in the Bible. Mary Magdalene, she was a prostitute, so, the little bit I know of that area is that, she did something, and Jesus still said, follow me, be with me, be a part of me, follow me, come do great things, even though she did that. Moses, done nearly the most any human can do whenever it comes to working with God and being used by God to take the people or the children of Israel out of Egypt and all of it, and through the desert, all the things that he did. But he had like either speech impediment or stuttered or lisp, or he had whatever it is that people are still debating today in today's world. But he was always questioning God and saying, I don't want to do this. Choose someone else, have them do it, have them speak, have them do the command, have them do this, that, and the other. So he gave into all other types of human characteristic flaws, and we are, because we give into the negative version of it, and that is being human. But God was still able to use our flaws, for his perfection and what he needed. Zacchaeus, I don't know. Anyway, anyways, he was like a really short dude, so he had to climb a tree just to hear Jesus talking. And Jesus saw him, and he's like, "Hey, you come on down." And he's like, "All right, come dine with me." And he was able to help that guy out, and Christ was able to transform his life because he was short and he went out of his way to climb a tree just so he could hear what Jesus was talking about. Abraham, he was super old. He was told that he'd have, generations, families, as many of the sands on the sea and the stars in the sky. He'd have a ginormous family that of his descendants. And he thought that was here now, jumping like back to back kids, having twins all day. He was expecting things to happen in his way. And Abraham did many great things and taught us a lot of great lessons and wrestled with God directly. And he was an old man, but he was able to be used when he was old. It didn't come when he was young young and able to move around and agile and all the stuff. He came when he was, a lot of it was when he was older. Lazarus was literally dead for 4 days. And then, then he was raised by Jesus by just a word, because death couldn't go against what Jesus said. So it doesn't matter how great you are or how great someone else was. Everyone comes from a past. Everyone has mistakes that they've done and they've lived in. Everyone has problems that they still fight with and overcome and have struggles. Everyone's going to. And that's okay, because we're going to have that. But it doesn't mean that anyone is perfect. That doesn't mean anyone who's a millionaire or a Hollywood star or NBA professional or anything. That doesn't mean that they just are that way because everything they do is perfect and glamorous. It's not. It's because they spend years and years and years working on and crafting who they are, and and dedicating themselves to this thing, this art, this whatever it is, whether they're a musician or an artist or a sculptor or something. They spend their entire lives dedicated to becoming better in this thing, right? As we are meant to dedicate and constantly try to get closer to God and to do more good things with Him, in His name, building His kingdom, becoming better, trying to get closer to Him. That's how we're supposed to be dedicating ourselves every day. So again, those who are the most great were not always the greatest. And the scripture was fulfilled, which says, and Abraham believed God, and it was credited to him as righteousness, and he was called a friend of God. You see that a person is justified by works and not by faith alone. So there's that other one that we've gone over. It says, it's not through works, but by faith alone that you're saved, and that's true. We believe and we are saved by the blood of Christ. Absolutely true. But there's that one parable that Jesus talks about. I think there's a couple different versions of it, but one is where, a guy was given, three different guys were given a bag of money, and one invested it and he got like 10 times the amount after investment. One guy got like 5 times the amount from the investment. One guy, he knew how precious the gold was, so he buried it in the woods, and so nothing would happen to it. When they came back after whatever it was, a month or a year or something, they came back and one guy's like, hey, I got 10 times the amount of, I invested it, and here's 10 times. The other guy's like, hey, here's I did the same thing, here's 5 times. The other guy's like, hey, you know what, I got this bag of gold and I knew it was important to you, so I didn't want to risk it, anything happening to it. So I just hid it and kept it for myself. Um, but here you go, it's back. And so he scolds um, and he just scolds and yells at that guy. And he's like, I gave you something, right? He's like, I gave you something. And, that's a parable of showing that the blood of Christ is, that's given to us, that we are saved. That money is representing Christ's salvation that He gives us, and we are meant to go out and multiply that across others, right? It doesn't mean that just because you go talk to 1 or 10 or 100 or 1,000 people, that even any one of them is going to listen to you or that they're going to change their life or anything. Again, sometimes you plant seeds, sometimes you water them, sometimes you harvest them, sometimes you're actually just plowing the field and trying to get it ready for harvest, right? Everyone's got a different stage, but he called us to be able to go out and and tell other people about Him and what He did for us, right? You want to go, you want to get that salvation. Like, that's why I'm so intense and dedicated to this right now, is because I know where I was and where I'm at. I'm like, there's only one who did that, and that was the blood of Christ. So I want to tell as many people about it as I can. And that's why I focus on what I do. And I'm doing so much work. So I'm taking all those gifts that He gave me, right? That that bag of gold, that blood, that sacrifice. I'm able to take that and go and give it to other people. And sometimes it's gonna help, sometimes it's not. Sometimes I'm there to plow the field and break apart a bunch of rocks. So, sometimes I'm there to plant the seed. Sometimes I'm there to water and just remind people that, you know, that's what happened, that his blood is what saved us and saved me. And then sometimes I'm able to go there and do the work and be the harvester. And that's, again, I don't know what the stage is. I never will until that time comes. And I'm happy to be able to be that. But it's doing those works, so you're saved, absolutely, and you are saved nonetheless. But whenever you do the works, like you're being called to go and do something, to apply what you have, that bag of money that the guy just buried because he didn't want anything to happen to it. He had it. He was given that. It wasn't even his. He was given it to go and do something good with, and he chose to not do that because he was afraid of losing it. It's taking that, and again, it's a fear, and God doesn't work in fear. That's only the enemy does. So it's taking that fear and going and fighting against it. It's taking that money, that salvation, and in other words, we're taking that salvation, we're going to give it to other people, we're going to tell them about it. And that's all we can do. So that's what it means whenever it's saying by the works and not by faith alone. Because it's not just, okay, I know Christ died for me. All right, cool. I'm going to go sleep with her. I'm going to go steal that car. I'm going to go rob that guy. I'm going to go, rob from that bank, and I'm going to go do all these evil acts. But since I know Christ died for me, I'm good. I'm in the clear. That's not how it goes. That's not how it works. And I know some religions and people believe that they can go do whatever they want, then go ask for forgiveness, and then they're okay. Then they go right back out and intentionally go do evil and whatnot. And that's not how that works. But again, everyone's on their own journey and has to learn the hard way. Whatever you do, do your work heartily, as for the Lord and not for people, knowing that it is from the Lord that you will receive the reward of the inheritance. It is the Lord Christ whom you serve. Well, we're serving him, and we know that if we're doing good, we're doing it for the right reason. We're not doing it for our own gain or our own glory. We're doing it all for the glory of God. That is where we're at. That is what we're trying to do. That is what we're trying to focus on. And because we are not greats, all right, we are not the greats, but we can be used for great things. That was it, guys. So just finishing off. God doesn't call the qualified, he qualifies the called. Everyone has been called, but very few seem to want to be qualified. They want to accept the calling and to do the work to be qualified, to be knighted, to be whatever it is that is going on. Very few want to have that delayed gratification in their life. Very few are willing to suffer and sacrifice. And it's a sad thought, but I see it so much that not as many are willing to do it. But I do see quite a few that do, and quite a few are working on it. And everyone's doing it in a different way and has a different calling in different capacities, which is phenomenal. No one person can do it all. So it takes all of us to work together. But remember, you can be a part of that, like anything else. You want to go be on a great big uh, football team. Well, then you have to go try out for the team. You have to practice and train for it. And then you have to be good enough that whenever they have tryouts, that they say you're good enough that you can jump on playing with the big dogs, and then you get to go be a part of that big group. But you gotta work, you gotta train. So again, all the greatest people in the Bible, they are all sinners. They all did horrendous things. They all did evil things. Even whenever they were saved, even whenever they had a direct relationship with God, they all still had times when they had times, not they constantly were doing it intentionally. That's a different story. It's whenever sometimes things happen. Sometimes the flesh gets the better of them. Sometimes they fall for that temptation or whatever the case is. So, any questions, guys? I'd love to hear them. Any thoughts, any kind of anything. These were just my thoughts. This is just what I had that the Father talked to me about, and you know, and it was great. So, any thoughts, any kind of anything, guys? I'd love to hear it. And this is the end of part one. So week 7, thought 7. We're done, and next week we'll go on to part 2. So can't wait to do that. Love you guys, and have a blessed day.